friendly neighborhood PhD, and you're listening to the Tye-Pod. Well, hey, everybody, it's time for another episode of the Tye-Pod as I see a wonderful Stitch cup there.
Yes,
But
Ohana
yeah,
means family.
yes, exactly, exactly. But I'm joined by Shaniece, who is a travel nurse, and you have been various parts of Canada, right? But I guess mainly around the like Vancouver type area, British Columbia, and that range.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mostly travel nursing on the west coast of Canada, so mostly BC, but I worked in Alberta for many years, so just the west side of Canada.
yeah, yeah. Have you ever kind of journeyed or traveled to the east side at all, or is that something you kind of looked into?
Still on my bucket list. I
Yeah.
really haven't ventured out there. As far east as I've gone is Saskatchewan, which is like
Mm,
pretty much the western side, so I wouldn't consider
yeah.
that on the east. It's absolutely beautiful out there. I just haven't had the opportunity, and I'm kind of biased because it seems like every summer or visits or like time off we go to BC because it's just so
Hmm.
beautiful out here and just
Hmm.
closer. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely want to take advantage to go out east, but I just haven't had the chance yet.
Yeah, just it definitely looks like wide open spaces kind of on that west side where
Yeah,
you're at. So that's pretty nice.
yeah.
But I wanted to start out with like a little bit of an icebreaker, and I normally I ask like if there's a song that connects to your journey, but I'm gonna change it just a little bit based on the Taylor Swift thing going on. So like, is there a song on the new album that you feel is kind of in some way defines or like resonates part of your life in some way?
The more that I listen to it because of the lyrics, I actually really like the song Father Figure.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really think like the best way when I'm reading the lyrics to explain it is it's like dedicated to someone who's been in a really bad relationship and they were technically the father figure of it and had to take care of
Okay.
the whole unit. And yeah, I just find that really relatable to what my past was. So that
Yeah.
one I'm listening to a lot. And I love the catchy bops, but I can't say I'm really like able to relate to that one quite.
It's always the more like the ones with the depth and like the little bit sadder lyrics that connect more, it seems
Yes,
like.
yes, the
Yeah.
soul crushing lyrics, as I like to say. Yeah,
Yep.
like how their album, like Tortured Poets Department album,
Yes.
and like that was probably the best lyrical album that she had for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Did you
Yeah,
find yourself listening to, wasn't there like 30 tracks on like the deluxe version or something that she had? Like,
31. She
yeah,
surprised us with a double album. Yeah, so
I I'm still behind on that one to be honest. So
fine. That's
yeah,
completely fine. We did
yeah.
like my friends and I did a listening party, and it took about 3 hours to go through all the
Ooh,
songs.
wow, that's a marathon.
Yeah, it was a marathon. It was a
Yeah,
great time, but yeah,
yeah.
a long night.
Did you do something like this for the most recent one with the Showgirl album?
We did. We're all
Yeah.
in separate cities, but we managed to
Oh,
see
okay.
each other, have a few drinks, and just enjoy it. It
Nice.
was a lot more short-lived than the other one because there's only 12
Yeah,
songs.
no, I know that could have been a letdown in a way after that last
Yeah,
one.
but she did warn us though. She's like, I'm only coming out with the 12th song, so I
Yeah.
think she prepped us because she just dumped 31 songs on us the album before. So
And that was
yeah,
only like what? It was less than 6 months, I feel like. Like she was
for
cranking
the,
out albums. Like when
she's it's
did
every like 2 weeks or so. Like she's on a roll, that
yeah.
woman.
And like
Yeah.
during the tour, like she's dropping albums. I'm just like, I have no idea how
I
that
don't know how she
happens
does it.
because
Like she dropped that album on tour, and then halfway through her tour, she incorporated that era in her
into
tour.
the, I know, I
How do you
know.
find the time? And then I was just blessed to see it all. And I think it was December 8th is the show I went to, and like
How was that?
money. It was like so healing. I went with my friends, like we knew every single lyric of every song.
Yeah.
I grew
Yep.
up with her, right? So it was so
Yeah. Yeah.
cool. It wasn't just one album, it was all her eras. So like we got to sing the songs back when like I was in high school singing them and relating to them. Like it was just
Kind
so
of followed
fun.
your whole journey. Yeah. Yeah.
It was so worth it.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
bet. Yeah. Yeah. My
yeah.
sister actually was a huge fan of her like growing up. And I think we almost switched roles where, I'm kind of more in tune with what's going on constantly than she is now. So, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
cool to connect it, to different parts of where you were.
totally.
And yeah, I took her to during the 89 album tours when I got to go with my sister and check that out. So that was
That'd
pretty
be fun.
cool.
That would be a really fun concert.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping on the next one she's going to be in Tennessee since that's where I'm living now. So I'm crossing my
Oh,
fingers it's going to be something. But
fingers
yeah,
crossed for you.
yeah, yeah. But no, that's cool. It seems like with every album, there's like several songs that connect to
Oh,
a lot of
totally.
us. I think are experiencing too.
Yeah, I think that's why
Yeah,
she's so big. It seems like there's so many different
yeah.
people that can just relate in different ways, which is so strange, but like really cool that she can do that. Yeah.
Like an interpretation thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And like, there's no. I mean, I guess there are maybe some stereotypical fans, but also it seems like she kind of captures a range of different people to me.
totally.
So
And I
yeah,
feel like she's been singing for like 18, 20 years maybe. So she's
true.
always getting like new fans, whether they're younger, she still has the older fans, I find at least
Yeah.
taken. But like, yeah, whether you like her or you hate her, everyone knows her, right?
Well, I mean, if like she has people talking about her, so
Yeah,
regardless, there's
exactly.
attention. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember even like the during COVID, the folklore album for me was like really that
I
helped
love that
a
album.
lot.
I can't get I still listen to that album like
Mm,
it just came out yesterday.
I know. I think I like basically every song on that one still. So
Me
yeah.
too. It was like the perfect album to release in COVID
Oh
because
my
you
gosh, yeah.
freeze to get lost in and like that's what you needed at that time, I find. Just
And it
to
was
get
such a
lost.
shift, and like the sound just fit exactly what people needed.
Yeah,
It seemed like yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, she that was a lovely album for her for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was, it was. but no, that's awesome. I'm always happy to meet and talk to another Swiftie fan. So
Oh, same here. I could
yeah,
talk about her all podcast.
we could just make that the whole episode. Let's not talk about anything else.
Oh, Taylor Swift. Yeah, book the other one for the next week.
Yeah, let's just go for like Sham's eras. Like we'll just do it that way. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But no, I wanted to have you like maybe just talk a little bit about like highlights or kind of your overview of kind of where you're at now and what your career looks like. Then I know we have more detailed questions we can dig into, but maybe just to start with a kind of a
Yeah.
summary.
Like a little bit of an introduction. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. So I've been a nurse, an LPN for 6 years now. So I want to say about 5 years of that career, I've worked in Alberta.
Mhm.
I graduated sometime in 2019. So I did 6 months of just medical surgical floors, just kind of like gain my skills and learn all the nursing world things. So I had 6 months of regular nursing, if you will. And then
Yeah.
COVID hit. So I'm like, what did I sign myself up for? Like, I did not expect a pandemic out of this new career.
Mm, yeah.
So that was kind of like overwhelming to wrap my head around. I knew just by the sounds of like everyone talking about it, some of the nurses walking away, some saying they're going to retire ahead of time. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this sounds like it's going to be a disaster. But there's also a lot of opportunities for me because there was so many jobs everywhere. So I did choose to take a part-time job on the COVID unit and just do
Mhm.
it frontline, see what it was all about. And then I did the rest of my full-time hours in the emergency department. So after
Mhm.
that 6 months of med surge, I went to the emergency, gained a bunch of skills there quite quickly, and
Mhm.
then brought those skills up to the COVID floor, which was really benefited me in the end because I was one of the most experienced nurses when it came to my rotation to work with all the other
Mhm.
nurses, and I had a year under my belt, which is
Yeah.
nothing in the nursing world. And we had some very sick acute patients because not only did they also present themselves with COVID, they had like other comorbidities, or I also feel like there's a lot of people that delayed hospital visits because they didn't want to come, so they came in
Absolutely.
sicker, which yeah, it kept us busy, that's for sure. So did that for I want to say about a year and a half, and then I needed a switch after all that because it was just I recognized I was burnt out. It was a very very high stress job, and I don't feel like if you can make it work your whole life doing that, props to you, that's huge, but like I find that you do need to take a break from that sort of work. So I
Mhm.
did decide to apply and go on a maternity unit, which I have loved so much. It's changed the whole game for me. Like it's
Change of pace completely. Yeah.
yeah, like just such a positive environment. Less sick people, people happy to come create a family, have new family, and like meet
Mhm.
new family members. So that really switched it up for me. I want to say that's probably one of my favorite parts of nursing that I love. Um,
Mhm.
but that being said, I had a lot of personal changes in my life, so that kind of brought me to travel nursing.
Mhm.
So I've been doing it for about a year in BC. I've been a little bit on the island, which was lovely, and then
Mhm.
mostly interior BC. Not so much the type of units I'd prefer to work as a nurse, but it's been such different experiences, such as like learning new communities, meeting new people, making
Mhm.
new lifelong friends and coworkers that I love dearly, and they're making it so bittersweet for me to leave. It's just yeah, a whole different type of like nursing. Your
Yeah.
days off, you get to go explore a whole new area. You feel like you're always on vacation.
Mhm.
I've never felt so grateful for my work as a travel nurse compared to being a staff nurse. So that was huge to see. Just people thanking you for your care because you don't always
Mhm.
get that as a nurse.
Well, I was gonna say, like, that's, definitely one of the big parts of it, I think, is,
Yeah,
not necessarily getting the best treatment or,
yeah,
assumptions and stigmas, obviously. And even my experience being on the patient side, like it was some were really great and some weren't. And I mean, who knows what circumstances or what exactly was going on, with them too, because we were all like humans going through the pandemic. And so there was, yeah,
absolutely.
big
And like I
impacts.
recognize there's like the COVID patients, which took precedence in a way because they were just crashing so quickly. But like there's also those people with long-term chronic illnesses still coming in the hospital, people with disabilities still needing the help. And I feel
Yeah.
like they were like the attention was almost pulled away a little bit from some people just
Mhm.
because we didn't have enough staff, at least where I was in the area, right? So
Right.
only do what you can do, but there's a lot of shifts even as a nurse where you go home and you're like, man, I felt like that was a horrible shift. I felt like I gave no attention to my patients because I was so stuck in
Yeah.
one room with one person. So
Well,
yeah.
just that mental drain, I can't imagine what that was like, because like it was my first hospitalization ever pretty much.
Oh
And
my
it was
goodness, what a
right
great
like
time.
peak pandemic. Like it was Christmas time too. So obviously that even made it worse. But it was just like, oh man, why did my body decide to do this now? But
Yeah, no doubt.
yeah, yeah,
Probably makes you question a lot of things, especially then. And like, I'm sure it must have been a little bit scary or intimidating, like seeing
yeah.
everything that's happening in the hospital too. If
And
that's,
I was one of those, like, working at home during the pandemic remotely and stuff, like,
oh yeah,
I would check the websites of the
yeah,
data in my area and see where it's spreading, and so, like, I was already hyper paranoid, and then actually having to go into that space, it was just like, "Oh my like, how
yeah.
am I gonna get out of here? Am I gonna catch, like, a
Absolutely,
super
because you're
version?"
really like relying on the healthcare team, unfortunately, to properly doff and don
Right.
the PPE and to make
Oh,
sure that you're not
yeah.
spreading it because that huge transmission rate comes from the healthcare people that unfortunately
Hmm.
aren't properly taking their stuff off. And it's very tedious and like it's time consuming, but
Right.
you have to do it.
Right, right. And then, with me having the disease I had, like transferring, moving me around was something that there wasn't, I don't think they were trained really to handle that. And, so that changed it too, where like they had to get closer to me to actually help me move or whatever. So there was a list of just crazy
Yeah.
things, that even without COVID it would have been rough, but that just made it almost impossible, I feel like. But
I feel
yeah.
like, yeah, it was a disaster, at least in the hospital, like nurse
Yeah.
perspective, because like I feel like every week we had different policies changing up, whether it was rules of
Hmm.
visitors, rules of isolation, rules of who can be cohorted in rooms together. It changed all the time. So
Yeah.
it's like every week you're like, okay, what are all the policy changes? Let's keep on top of these because
Yeah.
I
and
don't know.
and nobody, like the people like making the policies and putting them in place, like it was new for them, like they didn't know
Yeah,
exactly what
yeah,
worked, and
exactly.
it was a fluid situation
I feel
completely.
like everyone was kind of like learning on the go. Like, yeah, the policy
Totally.
people, infection control were learning on the go. The nurses were learning on the go. So were
Hmm.
the carriers. I feel like the doctors, at least where I worked, were all, I think they were all, I don't want to use the word forced, but they were all
Yeah.
pushed into working the COVID unit, at least
Oh
around
yeah.
patients. And, I feel like a lot of them, I don't know how they felt, but a lot of them didn't know how to treat them. So, like, it was a whole learning curve for them too, kind of relying on the nursing staff to see, like,
Mhm.
what works better for treatment for these patients and for what strain, because every strain, there's better treatment for certain
And
things.
it was evolving so quickly.
Yeah, it
I mean, I
was.
feel
There's
like there
lots
was a
of
new
strain.
strain like every month that was
Yeah,
just, yeah, it's going to be one of those things like people in 100 years look back and be like, that was like the Black Plague of the 2000s or whatever. But
literally. It's. I
yeah.
sure hope it's the last one of this.
I hope so.
Fingers
And
crossed.
and I mean, like that's the hard part is it's still, I mean, obviously there's still strains floating around out there too. So,
Yeah.
it's never going to completely go away. But
I
yeah.
think it'll always be there, but it'll be more of like we're now all exposed to it. So it's kind of like the
And it's
flu.
like a flu season type thing. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those first few strains, like that first ever COVID strain that was that was introduced to humans,
Yeah.
we called it the OG COVID because the OG COVID got people the worst. And then like
Yep.
I want to say the Delta variant was pretty bad from what I remember.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I think it was called the Omicron
I was
variant
gonna say Omicron,
when
like one
that
of
kind of
those.
switched up a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
That was more like a science fiction
Yeah.
type name or something. But yeah. Yeah.
I know. I wonder who came up with all those
I
names of strains.
don't know. That's
Super
interesting,
interesting.
actually. Yeah. Yeah. I'd be curious to know, is there like a naming committee for the
Yeah.
strains?
Because I know they
Yeah.
have like the UK variant, so that comes from the
Yeah.
UK. But like, yeah, I don't know where Delta and Omicron and all these fancy words came from.
Someone wrote a book, probably like, I don't know,
Yeah,
Star Trek or something, and they just pulled it out of there. I don't know. But
literally. It wasn't
yeah.
a nurse, I can tell you that much.
No, no, it wasn't. But from the travel nursing side of it, like in your area, like how frequently did you switch to a different location, and like how far like did you have to go for each one? Is it fairly confined space or?
It really depends.
Yeah.
I want to say travel nursing. I loved it. I loved the experience.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot more freedom than when you're a staff nurse. And a staff nurse, I feel like you only have set certain amount of vacations, so you feel like you're doing a lot more shift work and you're at home,
Mhm.
and it's harder to get some time off for yourself. Personally, I find from
Mhm.
my own
Mhm.
experience. Travel nursing, I find it's like they're all contracts. I get to pick which hospital I go to, whichever hospital needs help.
Oh, so they actually gave you the choice
They
in
have
it.
a
Yeah.
whole list of them. Yeah, so you're like, okay, these are all the cities or the little remote towns that need help. These are all the hospitals. Here are the units you can work. You can pick up a minimum of 4 weeks to 3 months. 3 months
Mhm.
is kind of considered a longer contract, but that's what
Mhm.
I've done because I always wanted to kind of explore the area. And I thought in 4 weeks, that doesn't give you too much time to do that and like
Right.
get to know people. So I'm a little bit more for the longer contracts myself.
Mhm.
But it's given me so much freedom where like you're done one contract and then I've taken a month off and have gone to Mexico to just actually
Mhm.
relax and
Okay.
come back for another contract. So it's just given me so much more freedom to like build my own schedule, have a much healthier like work life balance, which I find is kind of a challenge in the
Yeah.
healthcare world to find. Um, so definitely a year that I will not take for granted. I feel like I've gained so many experiences and it's brought me so much like opportunities even like unfortunately I will be probably putting travel nursing aside a little bit just because of a new
Mhm.
opportunity, but I would have never gotten that had I not been travel nursing. So my next move is going to be going to Vancouver. So I'm going from somewhere pretty remote to Vancouver,
Right.
IVF nurse, which will be totally different. But yeah, no, travel nursing has just been so lovely that way. I find if you're a nurse that's kind of like debating doing it, I would
Mm.
always just say do it. You've got nothing to lose.
Get the experience.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
always go back to your job afterwards. I always say like maybe some places might let you take a leave of absence. So I find that like
Mhm.
you can do that, go travel nursing for a bit. There's so many options out there, but I want to say it is a little bit of a challenge, at least at the moment now, because there's a little less contracts. It's
Mhm.
just a lot of politics. So if the government in the province is cutting budget, usually they'll cut the contract nurses out just because we are a cost, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there
Well,
is a little bit less of contracts. So it kind of just goes up and down. And that's one thing I've learned within this year.
I was gonna say like with COVID, it was probably the demand was just
That's where it
enormous,
just,
and then
yeah,
it's dropped probably since then. So it's got to be a challenge to kind of navigate that space, I would think.
a little bit, a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I want to say when I first started, there's about 100 jobs for me to pick, and I
Mm-hmm.
chose to go to the island because it's just so beautiful out there.
Hmm.
Absolutely love my time there. And then within then, I went from like 100 contracts to like 10, like just drastically dropped like
Wow.
that. But
Yeah.
it sounds like there still needs help and they're still short. So I don't know what the solution is or if there even is a solution. But
Right.
that means that I'm like, I'll just put it aside for now and just grab some security with a job somewhere else
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
and start a whole new adventure.
Right, right. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool that it's giving you kind of the space to do that. And also, I
Yeah.
was thinking just now, like I guess the knowledge or like the depth of knowledge of the different types of hospitals and being like between rural and city areas and everything. Like, did you feel like you got kind of a really diverse experience of kind of just the healthcare world in that travel nursing area?
I want to say a little bit on the travel nursing, but actually, where I
Yeah,
worked in Alberta, we were deemed rural, but it was like a bigger hospital in a rural site. Like we had
yeah.
surgeries and such, we had medical units, maternity ward, emergency. But I want to say, like, I've only been a student in the big city hospitals. I haven't worked many of the big cities because I'm not a fan myself. I find when you're rural, maybe the pace is a little slower at times, but
Mhm.
there's a lot more diverse things that come in, and there's a lot more limited resources. So, I
Mhm.
mean, you've got to be on the ball when something comes in. I find you're challenged a lot more to critically think because not only are you limited on resources, you're also kind of like doing the job of a few others. Like we don't always have pharmacy because it's the weekend
Mhm.
sometimes. We don't always have unit clerks to put in orders because they're Monday to Friday as well, or it's a night shift and they're not there. So you're actually pulled to do a lot of different jobs that just kind of land on the nurse's responsibilities if those other people aren't there to work.
Mhm.
So it really keeps you busy. It keeps your skills. I find I've I want to say within the 5 years working rural, I've gained a lot more experience than I would have in an inner city hospital. Again, I've
Yeah.
only been a student there, so I can't speak for work. But as a student, I just felt like it's amazing that they have all these resources, but it really changes the job. Like I feel like if you have a hard IV, you call an IV team, or like if someone's about to crash because they're not doing good, you call the code team, which is amazing because there's that extra resource. But as a floor staff nurse, you're very like boxed in your own little thing, and you don't utilize your skills as much is kind
Yeah.
of the idea I'm grasping here because I haven't
Right.
just from hearing other people.
Well,
So
and I mean, like I was just, envisioning kind of my experience with the city-based approach. You're right. It is like you're bringing in teams for all these different parts
yeah,
of it. Whereas like in rural, obviously, you probably have to do some of the skills that the other teams,
yeah,
normally
absolutely.
would. Yeah. Yeah.
Like travel nursing, I've been like more rural too. So like where
Mhm.
I'm working right now, I'm working two sites, but I'm talking about like we have one RN for the emergency, a doctor on call, and then we have one RN and an LPN for the to help the emergency and to help the medical floor. So we're
Mhm.
staffed three nurses and then maybe one doctor. I know there's even more remote where it's like you've got one nurse, maybe two, and then you have a doctor on call. It just really depends where you are.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I've experienced that quite a bit. Even like on the maternity floor, I feel like night shift. That's when all the babies like to come. So we've
Of
had quite
course.
a few like nurse deliveries before the doctors come in, or like we don't
Mhm.
always have people there. So you have to get very creative and just be like on the ball, ready to like expect anything that comes through those
Yeah.
doors.
Yeah.
I also
Yeah.
kind of like that, but yeah, it definitely keeps you on your toes.
I can't even imagine
Yeah.
what that would feel like. I'm curious, like during COVID, I know that there were like a lot of different things going on in your life too, and like, how was it for you to balance all the kind of the heavy things that were happening at once? And like looking back now, like how have you kind of evolved? Maybe if you want to share just a little bit of detail on that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm an open book. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I want to say COVID times for me were very dark. And to be quite honest, at the time when everything was happening with COVID world, as well as my own personal life, I didn't recognize that it was a disaster. I was
Mm.
too far into it, just head down working. And I think it took me up until 2023 until I took a step back and I'm like, holy crap, those last 2 years were absolutely insane. That was not normal. Like, let's validate that because it was something else. But like, yeah, no, I was married in COVID times. And yeah, I was just really busy working all these crazy hours in the hospital, as you can imagine, as well as I had a husband at home. But at the time, I just had no support. Long story short, I'm not going to go too far into detail.
Right.
He was an alcoholic, and he made my life very challenging.
Hmm.
Nevertheless, I find having such a high stress job, especially working the frontline COVID unit, and you don't know what to expect or anticipate. I also had the stress of like not like what am I going to bring home? Like I have to be extremely careful about that too. I don't want to bring
Hmm.
this to my loved ones. Like I got shut out by a lot of people just not wanting to see me because I was working the COVID unit, friends and family. So that was a little bit of a weird
So
mix.
they actively tried to avoid any contact with you during that time. Then
That's so I
that
won't
had to be
name names, but I had
isolating.
some individuals just say, "You're working the COVID unit. We don't want you around for." the holidays, or we don't want you around for these
Mhm.
events. So Skype us if you want. So I was like, okay, like I know it's a tough time, and I will
That
respect
the
that.
lack of I don't know, empathy or awareness
Yeah,
of like what
yeah,
you might be feeling with yeah, I can't imagine
yeah.
what that had to be hard.
It was a bit of a challenge with that. And then like, yeah, I had my husband where you'd think coming home you'd have a partner to be like, hey, I had
Mhm.
a really tough day. I don't talk about my days all the time. I know as a nurse we don't have a normal job, so it's not normal for everyone to hear. So I just kind of find ways to manage on my own. But if I really need to talk about something, I will voice that.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
like, yeah, no, just trying to explain that to my husband at the time. Just I would get zero support. I mean, I'd explain I had a really rough shift today, and I had the man like literally take his phone, be like, you have 20 minutes, go. And then I would have
Wow. So put a timer on that's
to
that
yeah,
is like over managing, I would say.
yeah, like and to what's crazy to me now to think is like I didn't even think what is wrong with him. I just thought,
Oh
okay, let's try
yeah.
and stick 20 my 12-hour shift in 20 minutes so I can be like listened to.
I mean, like knowing what was going on and the amount of stress that was happening. I mean, that's just yeah,
Yeah, like
that was not good.
no, like between that and then working nights, dealing with a lot of sick people where I should have my full attention. And then I'd have,
Mhm.
phone calls at 2, 3 in the morning from roommates who are just screaming through the phone. And I don't understand what's going on because there's
Yeah.
another drunken fight or an altercation or something going on at home or
Mhm.
someone's trying to run someone over. Like it was a lot of like craziness. I want to say I just tried to handle it all as best as I could. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I want to say what really helped me was switching to the maternity unit
Mhm.
because
So
that
that you were doing that kind of like right in that phase
yeah,
then. Yeah.
absolutely. And just finding more of a positive environment at work made me realize, okay, work's not so negative anymore. I'm finding joy out of this. I'm excited to come to work. Oh my gosh, the staff on the maternity unit were like family. I miss them
Yeah.
dearly, love them.
Yeah.
But they were just unreal. I love spending time with them. And then that's when I realized, okay, no, things at home aren't so good either. And kind of just put two and two together. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I just refuse to ever deal with that, tolerate that, or be treated like that again.
Yeah.
So I chose to walk away from my marriage. That was one of the biggest things in the past couple of years, which is also a big reason why I decided to go travel nursing.
Mhm.
It's something that I was again discouraged to do at the time, and so I've always been a type of person where I'm like a little travel bug, and I just love to explore and
Yeah.
experience new things, go on adventures. So I knew like I needed something, especially to just kind of like get over all that hardship of a marriage, as well as a hardship of like just having a really rough go to my career. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that really the maternity ward and that really changed my perspective. I want to say when I was working COVID, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, hated my job. And
Yeah.
I just was trying to find ways to get out of it. But then I just kept telling myself, like, no, you recognize that you started at a really, really, really bad time of the healthcare. So I kind of just told myself mentally, like, no, you're going to stick it out for 5 years. Like, you
Yeah.
worked so hard in school to do this. Give yourself 5 years to at least see where you go. And I'm so happy I did that because I mean, I'm looking at 6 years almost now. And it's like, wow, what would have happened had I not chose to like just
Mhm.
push through it and like
Right.
all the opportunities, and I'm starting to love my career, and I'm just so excited to start a brand new job in Vancouver now. So yeah, nowhere but up from here. It's been nothing
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
blessings, honestly.
No,
Yeah,
that's, I mean, that, for me hearing that and seeing that, you've kind of come through that amount of shit going on, and like, I don't know, just all the life changes and all of the variables going into, what you went through. And like, me not, I mean, obviously I didn't have you as a nurse, but I can just tell like you're the kind that is pretty rare and like there aren't,
thank
many, and I know patients need, they need a lot and they ask a lot from the nurses, like, and so does the employer too, obviously. So like there's just so much going on. I can't even imagine how like you would deal with something, for example, going from a room where maybe the patient is pretty much gone or
yeah,
downturned that way, and then you're expected to turn right around and go to another patient and just wipe that like
yeah.
off of your face. And
I
yeah.
find, yeah, like that's a huge subject to talk about because I find that a lot of nurses deal with this on their everyday shift and it doesn't get talked about because I find there's a lot of people like the biggest thing to me is kindness goes such a long way and that goes both ways. Like I find as a
Absolutely.
nurse, like I sign myself up for this, whatever issues I have in my own personal life, you need to learn to put those aside because whatever the patient's dealing with, that's their life. You're focused on that, not your own. And so I always find like you guys are going through probably some of the hardest times of your life probably,
Mhm.
especially if you're hospitalized for something, especially if it's a chronic illness or some huge news. So my goal's always been, okay, what am I going to do to step into that room and at least just put a smile on their face or like crack a joke, something like at least just lighten the mood because no one
It changes everything.
absolutely. And I find like not only that, but like having patients that are just like, even just use their please and thank yous, or like, I
Mhm.
get you guys can like, not you in general, just everyone in
No,
general
right.
might have some demands, and it's totally fair. You guys are in the hospital for a reason. You're needing the help. But to add some kindness to those demands makes such a huge difference on a nurse's
Yeah.
day. Like if I walk into a room and you're like, I'm in so much pain. Is there anything you can give me, please?
Mhm.
Absolutely. Let me work with you and let's get this sorted right away. But it's,
Yeah.
I come in and you're like, give me my pain meds now. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll go for it. But like, it burns you out real quick when you get treated like that. I
Right.
find like, it's almost like nursing can be kind of, dehumanizing in a way sometimes, because
Oh,
people
completely.
really forget. Like, yeah, the best scenario was when I was working COVID. I had just a couple in a room together, and
Mhm.
they were married, and both had the same strain of COVID, a little bit older, in their late 60s, 70s, if I had to guess, if it's been a while. And so, yeah, no, the husband and wife had the same strain. We put them in the same room, and the husband wasn't doing too good. He was crashing. So the whole team's in there. There's like 15, 20 of us trying to stabilize him. We had to intubate him, and we don't have ventilators in our hospital. So someone was bagging him while we're waiting for EMS or STARS to come pick him up to transfer him to a bigger facility. So as that's happening, his wife's in the corner in the other bed, freaking out. No one's near her because we're all so focused on this guy. And I had like a moment to realize, okay, everyone's got a job. I have a moment. I'm like, I need to go at least assess her. So I
Yeah.
went and just kind of like sat with her, and that's all she needed. It was just like sit there, be there present for her. Don't
I
say
love that though. You were like aware to realize that there was something else going on. I
yeah,
mean, like,
because like it's again, it's nothing against those nurses. They're rock stars.
no,
We're just so
right.
on it to be like, you're the like you're a priority. Let's focus. But yeah, no, I just felt really bad because that must have been like a really traumatic time for her.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that like even just me being there kind of helped a little bit through that. And then just yeah, the outcome with him wasn't so good. Where
Yeah.
she had to go. She wanted to go say her goodbyes, but with COVID times, she wasn't allowed because she had
Hmm.
COVID. So that was just so frustrating. And so, yeah, my job the next shift was to set up an iPad with her for her to go say her final goodbyes to her husband. So set that
How
up.
did you even, I mean, how did you deal?
It was just strange. Like, yeah, I'm in there with my PPE setting this up. She's obviously has no emotion, nothing, and
Oh,
I totally
wow.
get it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna give you your space, your privacy. I don't want to be in there. That seems so intimate. I feel like that's for
Oh,
her time.
yeah.
So I left, but like you know the deal with COVID. You take all your PPE off right at the door, and it takes a solid like 3 to 4 minutes to probably take
Seriously.
off. So regardless if you want to hear or don't, I heard the entire goodbye, and it was just heart wrenching.
I
And
mean, that's not in the training
no, they don't
manual or
tell you.
whatever. Yeah, like that
No,
doesn't I don't know how you would handle that just other
it
than
was
just like get through it in the moment however you could.
yeah, it was pretty tough. Like, and that's just another
Mm.
day as like that's just an insight of like another day as a nurse. Like, yeah, that was the
Yeah.
pandemic, but like it doesn't matter if it's COVID or not. Like, there's been times where we've gone in trauma rooms, we're doing CPR on someone that came in with a heart attack, and or someone, a kid who's drowned, and the whole family gets to see the kid pass away, and then we have to try and support that. And then okay, they have enough support. I'm going to go to my next patient's next room, and then I go to my next patient's after helping with such a traumatic call, and it's like, hey, how are you feeling? Like, let's
When
check
you're basically
your
like almost dying inside from seeing what you just saw like that.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
you're right.
it's
It's not just a COVID thing necessarily. Like
no,
that's
it's
part of the
every
job sometimes is dealing with, really tough. I
It's
mean,
every day,
yeah,
absolutely. And
tough
I get it.
situation.
Yeah, like I'm not too sure about the American healthcare, but in Canada, like there's quite the waiting. But it's just, yeah, like to have a little bit of kindness and empathy would go
Mhm.
such a long way. Because I find like, yeah, okay, you're waiting in the waiting room for a long time, and I get that. It's so frustrating to have to
Mhm.
wait when you're sick and you just want to be attended to. But there's just so many emergencies, and then to go from serious things like that to like go to the waiting room and getting yelled at or ripped apart by someone because they're not happy because it's taking a little too long, but you can't explain to them, hey, we couldn't attend to you because buddy over there died and this other one was drowning, because confidentiality. You can't say these things. So
Right.
you just kind of silence it and you kind of just keep quiet. And I find that's where there's like a big, I wouldn't say stigma, but like a big thing about how nurses are heartless sometimes is kind of like
Mm.
what I hear about it. But it's the work can be kind of dehumanizing in a way. You
Yeah.
don't have much of a break sometimes to kind of process what all went down. Like you have to wait till you're done your shift. And like I've had times where I don't even turn on the music when I'm driving back home. I'm just like, holy crap, what was my day? And then you just kind of
Yeah.
let all the emotions come out because you have to. You can't let them bottle in. That's not good either.
That's never going to work. You're right. And
No.
then like circling back, like that's where you kind of need your support system, to help you vent and process some of that that's going on because like I mean just the heaviness of it all and then you're expected to basically be a robot in a way, and I'll be the first to admit like I learned so much about, just like working with different nurses and all the stuff involved with like the ICU and everything. And like I was definitely, negative minded towards quite a few of the nurses that came in, and I know there's stresses and things going on, but at the same time, like I have taken a, step back and also realized that there were some good ones that I probably wouldn't have made it through without them coming
Yeah,
in, and so it's a hard dynamic to get through on both sides. I
I
feel
agree.
like, but yeah, like that's one reason. Like I reached out and was like, I want to get some of the perspectives of nurses,
Yeah,
and some of the medical staff because that perspective needs to be heard. And like you all are human too, and going through
yeah.
obviously a lot.
Appreciate that you reached out to me to say that because I thought that was great to at least speak up too. Because I find as a nurse, like you signing up for this, at least I did because I wanted to help people. And I
Hmm.
find that it's just kind of a challenge sometimes when we don't have the resources for the demand. And that being said, like I hope that people who frequent the hospitals quite a bit, or even if it's their first time, like I really hope that they do get a good experience with nurses. But yeah, there's always something in the background, and that's just not being shared. So that being said, it's great to be on here just kind of to talk about that. Also, I'm hoping that maybe out there's some nurses that are listening to me as well, because one thing that I learned the most about this, and I find that was the hardest for me to recognize when I was in it at the time, was the burnout. You don't recognize when you're burnt out, and I find that there's probably so many good nurses that have so much empathy and kind hearts, but when you're burnt out, that empathy runs out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to recognize that. Like there's times where I've worked a unit a little too long and I'm like, whoa, my empathy battery's like down here and that's not good. And that's me recognizing like it's time to do a switch. And that's okay. You don't have to stay on the same unit. You don't have to be just an ER nurse. You don't have to be just a maternity nurse. You can be any sort of nurse. There's so much
Well, it's much more diverse
diversity.
than, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
such a diversity. And to me, it's like, what an opportunity to, like, if you're burnt out in one department, go gain some new skills, try a whole new way of nursing and see a whole new perspective of it. And I find like that really opens your mind on different scenarios. And it just kind of gave me a lot of tools on how to like better deal with people.
Hmm.
When it came to like patients, nurses, management up high, like, yeah, I would hope that some nurses would kind of just like hear me out and say, hey, sometimes a change isn't the worst thing. Sometimes it can lead to
Yeah.
greater opportunities because that healthy work life balance also comes with you not being burnt out.
Right, exactly. And I mean, if a shift like that makes it where you're doing better, and so the patients obviously are going to benefit from that as well.
Absolutely.
And there's such a need with all the different types of nursing out there. So I mean, that's a good way to approach it. I think where you're still helping, you're still I
Yeah.
guess in some way following your passion of being in the care space that way.
Absolutely. And like there's so many different ways you could care. Like if you don't like being in hospitals, great.
Mhm.
Go to a clinic, go work long-term care if that's kind of more your thing. Or there's home care, or there's even like telehealth now where you can work at home
True.
as a nurse, which is huge, and just do things. You could go work in the correctional facility if you're into kind of more of an intense thing.
Mhm.
You can be a maternity nurse. I'm going to go be an IVF nurse. Had I ever
Yeah,
thought I'd be an IVF nurse in my life? No, but here I am,
but
and
there
I'm
you are.
so
Yeah.
excited for it. So yeah, just such a diverse thing. And I find like from my experience, I would say to like new nurses too, don't just like stick to one department and think
Mhm.
that's where you want to be. My biggest thing was I always thought I wanted to be an emergency nurse, and now that I look back, I don't think that's my
Don't
first
want that
place
so
to choose
much.
anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
The
and
diverse is
I,
huge.
I did want to touch on that, like that burnout thing too, some more though, and like mental health wise, like what do you kind of go to now, or what works for you, in terms of making sure that burnout doesn't creep up on you?
Doesn't creep up on me. My best way of doing it is like now I definitely keep more of like an active lifestyle. I know
Mhm.
it's hard to do with shift work, but you know what? When you're tired, you don't want to do it, you still do it. It doesn't have to be a full workout, but like sometimes I'll go hike, sometimes I'll go walk, just get some fresh air. I love nature.
Yeah.
Just the quiet, you just feel nice and grounded. It really just kind of like brings you back. It also helps me reflect a lot with what I've seen as a nurse, what I've dealt with, helps me kind of like grow from it. Realize what I could have improved better. And that really does help you with the burnout because it makes you feel like you're at least coming up with solutions to better, that scenario for the next time.
Mhm.
I find having a solid group of people is huge. I learned that the hard way, just given the support group I had prior to. I find it is just so important who you surround yourself with, just in general in life. Like
Yeah. Oh, totally agree.
so yeah, so I've got some friends that I like to call family for me, and they've been nothing but supportive, as well as they've got some pretty tough jobs themselves. So I feel like we've really leaned on one another just to kind of like talk things through, because just being
Yeah.
heard and listened to is a huge one as well. Music was a huge one for me.
Yeah.
Being Swiftie, I want to say when I walked away from my marriage, her most devastating breakup album came out like 3 months after. So it sounds so silly, but
No,
just
but
listening
it's
to her music
it's
every day,
yeah.
honestly. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
just
sometimes it is like the little things that help you get through that. Like it can't be like overlooked. I don't think how some things like that help.
Exactly. And
Mm.
so, yeah, silly things like that, doing hobbies, like just finding joy in your life. I find a lot of
Yeah,
it has to do like a mindset of things, not always looking at like the negative things of life. You're just always looking for the positives. And like, if there's a negative, okay, maybe that's redirection for something else in your life. Like, you just kind of
yeah.
have to have a mindset like that. Yeah, as well as like just kind of finding any sort of coping that's not going to affect you in a bad way. Just because I've seen, unfortunately, with people in my life, drinking addiction, things
Yeah.
like that, where it's
Going
just
to like the vices or something. Yeah,
yeah, and I'm just really happy that I guess I didn't choose that path to go down that way because I feel
definitely.
that's something that could have been, especially in COVID days. Like apparently the liquor stores were the essentials to be open, so that was always an alternative for people. And like even as a nurse, I want to say we did see an increase in the emergency of like domestic violence, just sexual assault, a lot of mental health on pediatrics because they were isolated and
Right.
they their time to socialize and make their own identity. And how are you supposed to do that when you're locked in?
Well,
And
there's something to be said, for having that balance of, like kind of a work like type thing or a balance with just some alone time, like all of a
yeah,
sudden everyone was just forced into the same space almost 24/7 and
absolutely. And
that's
people are
fine.
getting tired of it. And I get
Yeah.
it. And it was like you would see it in the hospitals as well, where like one of the big reasons why I actually walked away from the COVID unit was the divide in people. That's what got to me, and I couldn't do it. It was like there's the people that just believed COVID didn't exist and vaccines were useless, and we still had to treat them and respect them. And then we had the ones where it was just like they were coming in and like truly believed it, but then it wasn't so much like they were fighting. It was like they were trying to fight the nurses to get a reaction out of us. And it's like, you think we don't have enough on our plate? We don't
Yeah.
need you to like laugh at us because COVID's not real. Like I had a patient come out of his room without a mask and he was spitting on us at the nursing desk, laughing,
Kidding
telling
me.
us that COVID doesn't exist. And it's like, then leave. Someone else could utilize this bed way more than you. But
Yeah.
like, it just drove us nuts. And like, there's somewhere it's like you have to go in and just do your basic assessment and ask all those COVID symptoms. So you're like, do you have
Right.
this? Yes, I have all three, but it's not COVID. And it's like, okay, so what are we arguing about here?
And like you could hand them a positive diagnosis from an actual test and they would
Yeah, I'm
deny
like,
it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you had like a lot of just like, I don't know, I've heard a lot of people say like, my body, my choice. Great, I will respect that, but that was also their
Well,
last word. So I'm like, was it really worth fighting to the end for that? I don't know.
and
Everyone,
and the other thing too is it's like in that kind of setting, it's not just about you. Like there's way
yeah,
more people going through things that are high risk, like with their health situations. And I mean,
absolutely.
at least if you don't agree with it, don't, antagonize or use it as a source of
Exactly.
humor.
Like
I mean,
people, arguing, I don't want to wear a mask in this private setting. It's like, okay,
yeah,
I understand you don't want to, and it's your freedom, but like there's also immunocompromised people, and there's still a pandemic, and we have to look out for the population that are vulnerable and can't take care
yeah,
of themselves. But
yeah.
unfortunately, we live, I find, in a world where it's very selfish.
Well,
And
and it's very black and white. Like if
yeah,
there's something that's
yeah,
not agreed on, then you would like they feel threatened and need to attack the other side. And
yeah,
I just it's a more of a gray, I mean, like
yeah,
blur like spectrum area. And it's like, well, you just try to be kind to the people around you, and if you don't
yeah,
agree, I
yeah,
mean, that's just a human decency like empathy thing,
yeah.
and it goes beyond health, obviously. I mean, I think the world is just full of that mindset right now. So
Unfortunately, I would agree with you. I would say like we could use a lot more kindness in our world,
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
And unfortunately, I don't think that's going to like fix itself overnight. But hey, to talk about a podcast and talk about like kindness and like let's spread this, like yes,
yeah,
let's have this talk because hopefully we have a few listeners that are listening to it and get a little bit inspired to do so because
right,
it just yeah, it goes such a long way. And like not even just in the COVID days. I mean, I'm travel nursing and I'm bringing kindness and like just happiness on my everyday,
yeah.
and it's just bringing good morale to the hospital, to the staff. I mean, I'm baking cookies and bringing them for staff and they're
See,
happy.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I
after
love that kind of stuff.
yeah, they're just so sweet, and it's like it
Yeah.
makes you meet people and create connections that you never thought you would ever consider
Oh,
having.
totally. Yeah.
And it's like I blink, I'm done here, and I've got coworkers that are saying like, "Hey, please don't go," or some are like, "We'll figure out housing for you," like
Yeah.
and it's like that is like it just speaks to my soul because I'm like that just makes me so happy to think that like I made that much of an impact that you guys are wanting me to stay here or like it's my
Yeah.
last week and I've got quite a few plans with a few individuals just for like our last hurrah before I head out.
Yeah.
I always tell them it's not goodbye, it's see you later, but like it's
Right.
very bittersweet, very
Right.
bittersweet.
No, I totally I feel that, and like that little bit of brightness that, you and them are exchanging kind of back and forth too, like that's in a lot of ways that's kind of the only thing people can, get joy in, it seems like anymore. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a challenging situation for
Yeah,
sure.
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I was gonna ask a little bit on your social media side too. Like, do you have when you started it, did you have kind of a mission to kind of spread some maybe awareness and kind of sharing, your perspective as a nurse, or did it just kind of like evolve to where you kind of do a combination of personal life and sharing?
A combination of both. I
Yeah.
wasn't too sure. I've always been a little bit active on my social media, but it's mostly been just for my friends. And I
Mhm.
kind of knew like walking away from my marriage. Prior to that, I also had a year that wasn't so great. It was quite challenging with a roommate I lived with, as well as a
Mm.
coworker who just was a liar,
And
stole a lot
that
from
was
me.
prior or after the
That was after the
okay, wow.
separation. It was just like my little place to stay until I sorted out travel nursing. But yeah, got a lot of my stuff stolen, my things wrecked, just a lot of disrespect, lies, manipulation. I was portrayed to be like a horrible villain. So that just gave me even more fuel to my fire to just initiate
Yeah.
all this. So that kind of is where it led to travel nursing. And I knew like, okay, travel nursing wise, I'm going to have so many places to explore. I've always been into pictures, videos. I love landscapes, beautiful nature.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's utilize this and just see what I can do in a year. And then I'm like looking back at my social media and I'm like, holy shit, the amount of adventures I've done in a year is
Yeah.
just crazy. And just to remove myself from such a toxic environment in so many ways, like work, roommate, ex related, like it just has changed my whole perspective on like how to view life, what's important to me, what my values are even after
Yeah.
all that. So that was like a huge, huge change. But yeah, social media, I wasn't so much like aiming for nursing or
Yeah.
anything like that. I've always like would love to have some sort of following where I can connect with people because I love doing that. But I'd love to do that in a way where it's more of like kindness, like not so much like, you know, how there's a lot of like transactional things nowadays.
Oh, absolutely.
I would
Yeah.
much rather just be able to like, be myself, talk about this. I know there's a lot of nurses out there that deal with burnout, deal with difficult ways on how to like cope things,
Mm.
work-life balance being an issue. Some people find it difficult to keep a healthy lifestyle or find those workouts to do on those hard 12-hour shifts. So like anything to just kind of like throw out there for them to see and just be like,
Yeah.
no, this is we I can do this.
Yeah.
It just starts with you. You have to start with wanting to do something about it. But I find a lot of people are kind of stuck in the thought of doing things and they don't go to
Actually
initiative.
act. Yeah.
Yeah. But and I do find there's a lot of like fear that comes with that. But I'm also the type of person now where I've dealt with so much stuff that it's like if I'm scared of it, I'm excited now. I'm like, yeah,
You kind of like transcended that
yeah,
fear to a point almost. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it. It is what it is. Like I always say, fake it till you make it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I was just thinking, from what I've seen with your social media, like there's almost the advocacy thing that's not even necessarily the original intent, but like you
Hmm.
can tell behind it, that they're, I don't know, in a way leading by example to an extent, maybe, or just
Yeah.
sharing experiences, is a good way, I think, just to give people an idea what you're going through.
I feel like there's a lot of topics that you could get pretty big on as a nurse to talk about, but those conversations we can't really talk about.
Mm,
Just given
mm.
all the political issues and such, I find a lot of nurses are silenced when it comes to that in the social media world, which is quite unfortunate because that's another reason why I find that a lot of patients don't grasp, or other people in general don't grasp the life of a nurse, what we do
Mm.
on our everyday as a job, just because it is so, I wouldn't say silenced, but like kind of hidden from the truth.
Right.
So I think that it's kind of challenging for that because I wouldn't want to advocate too far where like I'm crossing those boundaries. But I'd love to advocate in a way where it's more of like a positive way and it's okay to
Yeah.
talk about the positive things in nursing. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Do
Yeah.
you feel a lot of pressure maybe from administration or from just supervisors on that being silenced and what you can and can't talk about? Like how do you
It's
approach
very
that?
frustrating because
Yeah.
like I'm just the type of person where I recognize I have a very strong sense of justice and I've always been like a huge patient advocate. I'm also the type of person where it's like if it doesn't matter who, administration, doctors, whatever, they're not doing what they should be doing for a patient and it's kind of reflecting on the patient care or their safety. I have no problem fighting for that patient, reporting such things that need to be reported. I'm a
Yeah.
big voice for that. So I do find it is a challenge. I find, unfortunately, what we're silenced about, if we talked about, we could hopefully maybe find some more solutions to some of the things. I don't want to touch too much about it, but like one just being the violence that nurses deal with on a day to day. Obviously, there's some departments that are a little bit more prone to violence, but like I want to say most departments, there's always some sort of violence that you have to kind of deal with.
Yeah.
And that's something that we don't talk about much. That being said, I don't know if it's just because we don't have much of a solution when it comes to like what are we going to do to keep the nurses safe, or
Yeah.
it's just the nurses are just not wanting to talk about it because they're scared or they just don't think there's going to be a change. Because I've had multiple times where I've been harassed physically and other ways as well, and I haven't gone to go say anything because I feel like there's nothing that's going to change. So I'm just going to deal with it like all the other chaotic things I see on my shift anyways and deal with it at home. But I
Yeah.
don't think that that's something that is the right thing to do or like healthy thing to do. I also find like in nursing school, I don't know about all the programs out there, but as myself, like we were never taught any sort of like mental health. Like, hey,
Well, I was wondering if there was any kind of training offered or anything. Yeah.
no, I think we did one course of communications, which is just learning how to talk a little bit, I guess, and how to
That
listen
that
actively.
probably doesn't help.
No, it really didn't prepare you for what's to be out there. Like I wish they would have at least let you know, hey, this is probably going to take a toll on your mental health. Here are the signs of burnout. Here are some healthy ways to cope. Like if we all had even just a little bit more of education on that, I wonder if it could have made a huge difference to like start off a career as a nurse. Because
Yeah.
I feel like you don't really learn things until you're really thrown into it. But there's been some scenarios where I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have been thrown into this with so much more guidance, and
Yeah.
had it not benefited me, it would have benefited the outcome of the patients as well. So there is quite a few things that could be talked about for sure.
Right, right.
But yeah, there's it's very hard to advocate, I guess, in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and it almost seems like there needs to be at least some more focus on providing resources for, the whole nursing side of it because, like you said, with the silencing and the pressure that you're feeling and almost like I don't know if it feels that way, but like if you're between the doctors and the patients, like if you're kind of just there as like the robot doing, kind of the daily care things, but not necessarily, I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of space for nurses to feel that pressure and not have a way to deal with
Absolutely.
it or not have people advocating for you even.
There's quite a lot of pressure too. Like I think people don't realize like we're not just dispensing medications, for example. It's like
Yeah.
if a doctor puts in an order and that dose is unsafe, we have to recognize that it's unsafe, go back to the doctor and be like, are you sure you want to give this dose? I think you meant to write this instead of this.
Mm,
And oh yeah,
mhm.
good catch. So like I find like a lot of nurses catch kind of like holes in areas, and that's our job to do. And no one
Well, that
sees
could be a
it.
life and death thing too, potentially.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
yeah, like it's just there's a lot of things behind the scenes. I want to say we're like we would all be great event coordinators.
Mhm.
Since I'm telling you, it's just yeah, I feel like we're kind of like that team member where we kind of just hold everything together. If
Yeah.
that makes any sense, the
Oh,
doctors
totally.
they're amazing. They treat you guys. Obviously, we need them, but they're not there for the whole shift. And I'm sure you could account for that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
And again, like if they do make a mistake, like that, it's not. I think a lot of people go into it thinking like the doctor is the expert on everything, and they don't, have issues too. And at some point, like you said, if they get a dosage wrong or just make some
yeah,
little mistake, like for you to
yeah,
be there to catch that
yeah.
is, I mean, that's a significant thing.
Yeah. And I want to say we work more collaboratively with the doctors. It's not
Yeah.
so much like a hierarchy thing
Does
anymore.
it feel that way with you in general, like with doctors?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
it works so much better that way. I find most doctors recognize that the nurses are around the patient that's sick all day. They know
Mhm.
their routines. They know when something's going down. Like I would have a better understanding of what your normal is versus the doctor that comes in every shift
Right,
here and
right,
there.
and also, like, you would bring in kind of that I feel like comfort with the patient too, maybe where they
Absolutely,
help like, you're helping
absolutely,
them to explain what's going on maybe to the
yeah.
doctor or something. Yeah,
And I
yeah.
find like if the doctor's willing to work with you, it's just such a great collaboration. And I
Well,
feel
that's
like
the way it should.
patient too for their care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you've also got those doctors where it's like you kind of tell them a bit about what's going on. Like, I don't want to hear about it. And it's like,
Mm,
oh, okay. And then they go in there and they're not treating effectively, or maybe they're just potentially missing something because they don't want to hear out the nurse because they're up here, we're down here. So there's a little bit of that mentality, a little bit still. That makes it a little bit challenging. And that's where I have a problem because I'm like, I'm not here to like compare who's better here. I'm here to make sure this
right.
person gets the proper treatment. So yeah, that's kind of the where I like to advocate. So I feel like if there's an issue there, I have no problem advocating for my patients. That's my number
Right.
one. Yeah,
Right, exactly. I mean, I feel like that's the way healthcare should be in general is to have a team that is collaborative, with the patients as well. And like that's to me, that's the best way to address the problems going on usually. So, and
absolutely.
it's rare, I think, from at least from my experience. Like even when I was living in New Mexico, like it was almost impossible to have like a cohesive care team that would communicate
Really,
things to each other, and so like that's I don't know, there's so many areas like that that need some attention, I feel like.
I would agree. I think it's kind of a mix too, because like I've had it too, where I go to discharge someone from the emergency, and I'm like, do you know like here's your prescription, do you know what this is?
Yeah.
I'm like, no. And it's like they don't care what they're taking, and I'm like, do you not care what you're taking? I'm like, I don't care
Mm,
that you don't care. I'm going to sit here and explain to you what it is so you understand what's being put in your
right.
body. But there's so many people that don't care, and so that kind of blows my mind too. And so I think things get missed too because doctors just discharge you and write the script and away you go. Some are great,
Yeah.
I'm not generalizing all of them, but like some don't tell you what's going on, and you go in the room and it's like, did the doctor tell you what your diagnosis is or like what meds you're being on? And some are like, nope. I'm like,
They
okay,
just
well,
handed me the prescription and that's
yeah. And sometimes like,
yeah.
okay, so like, is my leg broken? Is it a sprain? I'm like, the doctor didn't tell that to you. There's just a lot of like little
Ooh.
things that get missed, but there's so much that goes on in our every day. And I recognize the doctors have such a heavy load, at least around here too. They've just got a lot of patients to look after. And I
Mhm.
can't even imagine the amount of patients they have. I wouldn't be able to keep up with the names even. So it's a
Right.
whole problem everywhere. Like it's
Oh,
not
it's
just a problem, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah, and it's layers of, like
Totally.
complexities and variables, and you have no idea like what that
Yeah.
looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to say like the biggest one, at least that we've been fighting for around here, is just a better ratio for nurses and patients to be safer. And that's just kind of been the ongoing thing, I guess, that we've been talking about. And it's unfortunate that there's still no solution because I think that's the biggest outcome for patients is to have enough nurses to like watch out and make sure we're not missing anything. So
Totally.
yeah,
Right.
so
And
that's
I
a
mean
big
like the strain on nurses when they are overextended on number of patients too, like that has to be a
absolutely.
huge factor.
It's huge
Yeah.
because I mean, there's times where you're supposed to have 5 to 6 patients, and I've had 10 to 11 on a day shift, and they're all
Mhm.
acutely sick. And you just pray that they're all going to stay stable because if there's one that goes down, you don't have time to keep an eye on the other nine. So it's like, how are you supposed to deal with
Yeah.
them? You have to be really good with your time management. But I've had it where I've had a shift where I've missed all my breaks. I haven't gone to the bathroom because I've been so busy with my 11 patients. And I go home and I'm
Mm.
like, wow, that one independent patient that I could have had a good conversation with today, I didn't, because all I've had to do was just do a quick set of vitals, ask them if they're in pain, and be like, come get me if you need me because I won't be
Yeah.
here. You
Yeah.
shouldn't have to do that as a nurse. So,
Right, right. And I even think, with some of the nurses I had that were so good with coming in, just like chatting for a few minutes, just as like conversational was a big deal. And it
yeah,
probably would help. I would think it helps, you as nurses too, sometimes to be able to go in and just like talk with a patient, maybe that's not quite so serious, or
absolutely.
maybe, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Like I picked up a few shifts just as carries because they were so short. So I had a few shifts where I'm like just getting people up for the day. And I'm so not used to that because I'm used to doing the assessments and all these questions. So you're in the room a lot more and they're talking and they're like to their patients and they're talking and updating them about their families and their loved ones and who's coming to
Hmm.
visit. Like, wow, you guys have like so much more time with the patients and no kidding, you guys are closer with them. It's like you actually
Yeah.
get to sit there and like give them time to talk and make them feel like they're listened. And I feel like
Almost become friends in a way.
yeah, yeah, in like a professional way, absolutely.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
find like that's very important, especially for some like around here. I've had a little bit more time to do that, and it's like you're able to have those conversations even with an individual who's having a hard time accepting that they're at
Mhm.
the end of their life, like they're kind
Yeah.
of taking the next steps. Just going in there and sitting with this gentleman for about half an hour and just hearing him out. I didn't say anything, just hearing him out on all his like input and thoughts of like what to expect afterwards. Like that just put so much peace. I felt like that put so much peace to him to just have someone there to listen. And I felt fortunate to be able to give him that because I didn't always have that opportunity back in the day when we were just struggling to have staff.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, definitely a whole different perspective. And it's made me really love nursing, but it's also made me realize like, wow, there's a lot of improvement that could come with
Yeah.
this job.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, it's good to see the pros and cons, I guess, of everything going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I know you and I talked a little bit about some of like the like using dark humor sometimes to get through things, or but I was just curious if you want to talk a little bit about that, like how it helps you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, you bet. I feel like that's another way that most healthcare workers, at least that I've met, cope with everything. Our dark.
Well, and on the patient side too, by the way, like that's
Yeah,
we go right to that a lot.
I'm glad to hear that because
Yeah.
like sometimes you're a little scared to like cross the line with some patients with some of
Mhm.
the jokes. Some really appreciate it. Others are like, I don't know if you'd appreciate that one. So I'm much more careful with the patients when it comes to my sense of humor. But like, oh
Yeah.
man, my friends too. I mean, they work some pretty hard jobs. Like I've got a friend who's a social worker, which is just
Ooh.
an even crazier job than nursing. If you ask me, I just give my hat off to like any social worker out there, which I'm sure they have a lovely sense of humor as well. But it's true, like it's like there's so much that we see and there's so much that we're not supposed to see and deal with that
Mm.
it's like you can't always go to the dark side of things in a negative way. You have to find humor in some ways. So whether that's pulling pranks on your coworkers, innocent little pranks, whether it's just saying something completely mortifying that would get someone's jaw to drop that
Yeah.
doesn't understand what we do. But it's hilarious. But that's what we do. We laugh at the trauma because what else is there to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I
that's
mean,
like another like big coping thing has just been the sense of humor. And like I know this is a little dark and it might be a little bit hard for some viewers to hear, but like yeah, there's been times where we kind of just joke. Like I was telling you, it's like, oh yeah, this curve looks so poetic, but there's not enough music enough for me to like swerve off it yet. Like just as a joke, I don't mean
yeah.
that I'm actually gonna like. But sometimes you just have to like say those things to just get that feeling and thought out of your
Right.
head. And
Right, right. And that's the thing too, is like sometimes, we have these thoughts and like instead of acting on them, we can just like, casually joke or throw it out there.
yeah,
Like, I mean,
and it's
that's
like
obviously much better than going through with it.
exactly. And
But
it's like I'm not saying like to encourage everyone to do that, but
but
I think that like it definitely does help a little bit. Especially when like I find mental health, there's a lot of people that don't talk about it. I find a lot of people think they're a burden and they choose to bottle their emotions and feelings and stresses up, and that's where you land into those problems.
yeah,
So why not talk about it? Whether that's something serious or whether it's with humor, at least it's being talked about, it's being acknowledged, and
right.
somehow it helps. I don't know how to explain it, but it just
I mean,
helps.
maybe just brings it like to the forefront where at least it's some way talked about instead of just
Yeah.
internalized. Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, the disability side, thinking about like that burden complex too, like that's the thing. If you just hold that all in, it's not going to be
No,
good.
absolutely. I find like you need to have humor in your life to like
Yeah.
in a good headspace. And I like as a nurse, I can't account for personal experience, but I've seen people's lives literally change within a blink of an eye. And I know you can probably relate given your own
Mm.
experience. And like I feel for those people so much because I'm like, that's gonna be a whole new thing for you to cope with. and that's on you to decide how you choose your trajectory. I can't do
Right.
anything about it, but I can at least try and put some sort of like lightness in the darkest
Yeah.
time where you're trying to figure all of this out. So
Oh, totally, totally. Yeah, like that makes a big difference. Like I'll put disclaimer on dark humor on the episode, but you
yeah,
know, like that's yeah.
just to be safe because you never know, and there's some that don't get it, and that's okay.
Well, and
But
that's what I was gonna say. Like that's good, but for some of us, like that's the only way that we can get through with it, you know.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and
And
some people
it's interesting that you know, like both sides, like nurses and patients kind of like we have that common thread, I think, a lot with the dark humor thing for sure.
absolutely, and I find that like now that you mention that, it's like we kind of forget too sometimes because I feel like us nurses with our coworkers and our staff, we say whatever comes out of our mouth. We have no filters. Like it's the staff room you don't want to walk into when we're doing reports.
Because you're gonna hear
All
it.
those jokes, right? That's
Yeah.
where you kind of like let it out. And yeah, you don't think of saying those things in front of patients unless you're feeling really confident about it. But I bet you, now that you mention it, a little bit of that dark humor could go a long way, but you'd have to really
Yeah.
choose your crowd.
Well, you would have to know, yeah, you have to know the patient a little bit more
Yeah,
probably to make sure. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Like there's times where I go in and I'm like, how's it going today? How are you feeling? I've got a patient's like, oh, nothing's great today. I just would rather die.
Yeah.
You just open the blinds and I'm like, that's the spirit. I'm like, let there be light.
That's
Like,
hilarious.
like turn the day around and
Yeah, yeah. You almost need to have like a pre like questionnaire with your patient to know like, do you appreciate dark humor? And if they check the box and you're like, hey,
yeah,
this
that's a good way to put it.
yeah, yeah.
You're giving me ideas now.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, that's
Yeah,
there can be some benefits from the podcast for sure.
exactly. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a really effective way to do that for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like I
Yeah.
said, kindness and humor and just being happy, it goes such a long way. Such a
Yeah.
long
It really does. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's a million different ways we could go on the question still. But no, definitely would like to, you know, visit a little bit more about things. But I know that this is probably for the episode wise, there's a lot of details we've already kind of covered. But
Yeah, there's been quite a bit, hey?
yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as far as I don't know, like interacting with people and like inviting them onto your social pages, like do you kind of advocate for people to kind of join and follow along with your journey? As you know, I know it's probably public profiles, right? I think you have
Yeah.
them available. Yeah. So is
Yeah.
that yeah, if that's something you want to share, I definitely would love to, you know, put that
Yeah.
information out there.
It's definitely like it's not it's something that I did more of a hobby and also
Yeah,
honestly it's
yeah.
given me a little bit of peace because I feel like a lot of people on my social media prior to my separation, I kept very quiet. I just kept
Oh, yeah.
I planned all this stuff and just initiated. I didn't really talk to many people about it except for some of my close friends or like some of my coworkers that I was brainstorming with. Um, so yeah, it's just huge to think that like I initiated all that
Yeah.
and here we are.
I know, I know.
It
But no,
absolutely
that's I don't know. I feel like it's weird that sharing things that are a little more personal with, you know, like
it goes
almost
such a long
strangers, but at the same time, like when you find the right group on social media,
yeah.
like
It can
it's healing, right? Like it's
I've had
almost
like
therapy.
common strangers reach out to me
Yeah.
like, hey, like I love your content. Hey, you're such an inspiration. Hey, I'm just following you to see where you're going to be on your next journey. And it's like I
Yeah.
didn't expect. So I'm just like, really? Like, thank you so much. That's so nice of you to say. Or you know, like, sure, follow along. But like, I don't know. It's interesting to see how many people with interest. I've had also quite like a few nurses reach out to me, being like, hey,
Yeah.
what's your journey about? And like, I've had you reach out to me, being like, hey, are you interested in a podcast? So like, I'm kind of like
Yeah.
wow, like look at all these little opportunities just with having that social media.
And where would that like how would you get that in any other way? I'm just always thinking now, like, you
Absolutely.
know,
And I'm like, it's kind of given me in a way like kind of a silent voice to kind of share a bit more of my story,
right.
especially with what I went with. And like I said, I have some users that have followed me when I was with my husband, and they're still following me after my husband. Not a lot of people I don't think knows what happened, but that's because I chose not to really bring that up. It's a dark time,
Right.
and I don't really need to go back there or bash anyone too hard on social media.
Light bashing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just like it's really nice to do have this opportunity to even just speak up, not about like not only about a really important topic when it comes to like the healthcare, but like also a topic with like my more personal friends, to being like, hey, I'm okay here's where I am, here's my new insight on life. I'm happy. I couldn't like I feel like I'm just blessed with like blessings lately.
Yeah.
And yeah, just for them to see that I'm happy. I've had quite a few of them reach out to me and being like, you're just killing it and so
Yeah.
proud of you. And like just to hear that, you're like, wow, like okay, I am making a difference. Because the way that I'm seeing it, I'm just kind of taking little steps here and there, and I kind of keep
Mm.
forgetting to look up and be like, holy crap, no,
Well,
I'm
it's that way when it's
everything.
just yeah, when it's like just you like kind of going through it and just like surviving through some of that, you know, the harder times. Like it's sometimes it takes somebody coming in from, you know, a bigger like I don't know, like a more objective space. Like they can really be like, hey, this is like you
Yeah,
went through a lot, like you walked through the fire and now you're, you know, on the other
yeah.
side or whatever. So yeah.
Absolutely. And like, yeah, you don't really recognize it because I was just focused on, okay, this place that I'm living here is toxic. What's my next move? I have to, like, you're just thinking of all the little baby steps, and then you don't
Yeah.
realize like all those little baby steps lead to such a big thing.
Mhm.
That's kind of where I'm at right now. Like, I'm like, holy crap, all these opportunities now. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's just crazy what a couple of years can do in your life when it comes to just having a
totally.
great mindset, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like just getting through burnout stuff, like that's it makes such a difference for sure. And realizing that, you are in like a toxic space and you have to get out of it. And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, it's hard to act on that too
Oh, it
sometimes,
is.
but
I find when you're negative, like I find the natural human thing to do is great. Let me look at all the other negatives I have in my
Mhm.
life, and then you spiral out of control, and
Exactly.
yeah, it leads to not the greatest outcomes sometimes. So you really,
Definitely.
really
Yeah,
try to get
definitely.
a
Yeah.
mindset.
And it's like it doesn't matter if you're, if you're part of the healthcare like area or if you're the patient side, like there's still that human, human side
Absolutely.
of it too that I think we all
And I
somehow
feel like,
share.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone's affected by the healthcare in their life. It just you're
Yeah.
affected in a different way than someone else, but everyone is.
Right, right. And like that's also, I mean, it does highlight to like why we need to have these conversations between groups, I think too. So yeah,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
find like, yeah, there's so much divide, and unfortunately, a lot of the frustration and the divide would maybe be a little bit better if it came to just like, yeah, having these conversations, having people hear other people out and gaining new perspectives instead of being so close-minded and
Mhm.
opinionated. Like, sure, have your own opinion, respect that not everyone has that opinion, but also have an open mind where you can also recognize that there can be two opinions for one thing, and it's okay.
Right. And I mean, yeah, like that's it doesn't mean you have to agree or have to, like I don't know, conform's not really the right word, but it's like you don't have to follow what the other
Exactly.
person's thoughts are. It's just like have
Just
that human decency towards them. Like you do your thing and I'll do mine. And yeah, yeah.
absolutely. And
And
I, yeah,
I had an advisor, she would tell us sometimes working with people like that. She said, you're not that person and you're not living with that person. And so like, you know,
yeah, that's a good way
you
of putting
can
it.
yeah, yeah, you can keep going, but still not treat them with that kind of
Absolutely.
animosity. Yeah.
No, yeah, it just goes such a long way. And I want to say that, yeah, like I said, I felt it really obviously in the COVID times because that's where the whole world divided. So that was, yeah, it
Yeah,
was
I did.
interesting. And like, I'd be very curious to hear other nurses' stories and experiences
Mhm.
that work the COVID unit, because I haven't actually personally spoken to many nurses that have worked the COVID unit.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to just be like, hey, did you have this issue with the divide as well? Did you have patients just disrespect you out of their beliefs? Even I'm
Yeah,
the one
definitely.
that was here to actually try and take care of you, but you're refusing that and you're disrespecting me because your opinion's more important than everyone else's, apparently.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, but no, that would be interesting to, see what the other perspectives are like on that. But yeah,
Totally.
definitely, if there's any other nurses listening that want to, hop on and have a chat, like I'd definitely be curious, hear the perspectives
Yeah.
there and get more data from more stories, because I think that's yeah,
Yeah.
the more stories that we hear, I think the better our like understanding is what's going on. So
Oh,
yeah,
100%. I would
yeah.
agree with that, but I might be biased because I'm a yapper
Well,
myself. So.
yeah, yeah. But no, I sure appreciate the time. I'm looking forward to sharing this with the audience and seeing, what
Yeah.
kind of response we get. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I bet. Oh, I appreciate you giving me the time too to be
Oh,
here.
totally.